Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk and make a video that actually is kind of spawned out of nowhere, because I actually ran into this while I was doing research for a different video, and I saw this and I was like the answer really kind of surprised me. And so I want to talk a little bit about the third largest on-chain ecosystem that I would guess you probably have no idea about, because the thing that's crazy, and we're going to actually be talking about Bitcoin. Now, you're probably thinking, yeah, Bitcoin, everybody knows about Bitcoin, right? But Bitcoin usually is kind of seen as like the boomer chain, where you've got Bitcoins and you can't really do anything with it. All you do is like the purpose of having Bitcoin is just holding Bitcoin and not really doing anything with it, right? Well, that's kind of started to change, and it's actually started to change to the degree that there's actually is the third largest crypto ecosystem on chain, which I was very, very surprised to see that. I think last time I looked, it was like the 6th or 8th largest. It is only behind Solana and Ethereum. So, you know, BNB, Sui, Base, Arbitrum, Tron, Avalanche, Polygon, Aptos, Hyperliquid, XRP, Cardano, all of these, bigger than all of them, which is kind of crazy. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today, go over some of the stats, what it looks like overall, just kind of according to DeFi Llama, because a lot of this information is on DeFi Llama as well. And then I want to talk to like why I think that is, what the future could be, a lot of that type of stuff. So anyway, we'll go ahead, we'll dive right in. Starting out with DeFi Llama, we can see right here, they kind of rank the chains in order of TVL specifically. So we can see here Ethereum, if we look, very, very well and far ahead in terms of total value locked, almost $60 billion. Struggling though. I mean, we saw it actually come back up to like, what was this, 70, almost $80 billion. But all-time highs were back in 2021, where we were seeing over $100 billion of TVL. So haven't quite gotten back there yet. If we do look at Solana, we're actually at $9 billion. We did see a top over 10, as actually $12 billion is when we saw that top. And then we get to the third one, Bitcoin, of course, $6.6 billion in TVL. Now, of course, this is a substantial amount less than Solana and like a mere fraction of Ethereum, but it's the third largest, right? I mean, keep in mind, we've got Tron that's 4th, BSC's 5th, Base is 6th, Arbitrum 7th, Barachain, Sui, Avalanche, Aptos, Polygon, all the way back down. So pretty impressive that it is the third largest chain. And to be completely honest and clear here, look at what we've got on chain, right? I mean, app revenue is tiny, volume is tiny, perps volume is tiny, active addresses is actually pretty impressive. So this is a pretty good number. I think from when I was doing my research, I think this is comparable to Base active addresses. We'll actually go back and we'll check. We can see active addresses here is 850K. Bitcoin is 734. So a decent bit less than Base, but still comparable, I would say, within the similar ballpark. And so we can see here, I mean, obviously market value of Bitcoin just shy of 2 trillion. So, very, very, very high market cap, dwarfs everybody else basically in terms of market cap. But I was really surprised to see that this is the third largest ecosystem, when I don't know if any of you have been on Bitcoin, but there's almost nothing to do there. And so this is kind of what I want to talk a little bit about, is because one, I think we're in the very, very early days of the crypto or of the Bitcoin ecosystem. And the fact that we are in such early days of Bitcoin and it's already 6 billion, to me indicates what we could potentially be seeing in the future, right? And that is hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe even trillions, depending, pretty impressive scale there. And so what we can see if we do look at the protocols and kind of where the TVL is, it's almost completely in restaking. In my opinion, this makes sense to me, because restaking is one of those things that I think is kind of a natural kind of next iteration for Bitcoin. And the reason why I say that is because if you have, like right now, there's nothing to do with your Bitcoin. You can just hold it and that's it. And the game that you're playing with Bitcoin right now is basically a speculation game based off of it being a store of value. And so the supply is fixed relative to, some of the other assets in the world. And that's why it's important, is because you're basically saying, if I have 1 Bitcoin per dollar today, but I have 1 Bitcoin per $5 tomorrow, in fiat terms, the price of Bitcoin just 5x'd, even though it's still the same Bitcoin. There's just more of the other thing relative to the Bitcoin. So I think the restaking makes sense because it's a kind of next iteration. Because with Ethereum is nice because not only can you hold and speculate on Ethereum and potentially play the store of value or deflationary game or whatever type of game you want to be playing with the Ethereum token or the Ethereum coin, excuse me. But you actually can like earn an annual or a passive yield on your Ethereum. You can earn 4% on your Ethereum relatively automatically just by going in and staking it and being part of that proof of stake ecosystem. So Bitcoin, the only way you can realistically earn Bitcoin is going and buying a miner and mining Bitcoin and all that type of stuff, which of course a ton of people do, and it's definitely a very like valid business strategy. But for those of us who are just not wanting to get into like the industry of mining and having the having to buy the miners, store the miners, and power the miners, and do all that, and all that type of stuff, pay for the electricity, we just want to buy the Bitcoin and hold it, right? And so I think having this restaking protocol that other possible protocols could use, they could essentially leverage Bitcoin's security, its decentralization, its name, brand, a lot of that type of stuff as a way to secure their network, I think makes a little bit of sense here. And so I think restaking to me is one that does make, or would be a good kind of initial fit, and why we are seeing a lot of TVL kind of flow into the Bitcoin ecosystem. I think kind of the next thing is maybe some more like infrastructure, tooling, apps, things like that on the Bitcoin ecosystem, just because that's, of course, it gives people more of an ability to do things on the Bitcoin ecosystem. So we actually do have another thing here where this is everything built. This is CoinGecko. We can see this is top Bitcoin ecosystem coins by market cap. We've got Dog, which that's just a meme coin. We've got some of these other like early on like BRC20s, which are kind of like ERCs, but they're just on Bitcoin. Not quite though, because obviously ERCs, Bitcoin does not have like smart contract capability, at least yet. It's potentially going to be changed, but doesn't have a smart contract capability yet. And so because of that, some of these are, it's a little janky trading these, at least in a decentralized manner. If you trade them on a centralized exchange, it's actually not too bad. But we can see, a whole bunch of different things on here that are building out on Bitcoin. Track is one of the like infrastructure plays that's fairly popular. There's a couple others down here. Liquidium is another one. This is more of like a collateralized lending type of platform, which is kind of cool. Satoshi VM was one that it hasn't really done much recently, but it was one that kind of had ambitions of building on Bitcoin. There's some others that I've talked about. I mean, we've talked about several of these on the channel before. We'll go into those. Before we do that, though, we're just going to take a quick pause, and I do, just to let you guys know, that I do have that link to BTCC in the description below if you are interested. Again, as I always mention, 10% bonus on first time deposits, $10,055 per user, and no VPN or KYC necessary. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to go ahead and check that out in the description below. Now, going back to Bitcoin and the infrastructure and the building and all that type of stuff on Bitcoin, it's really important to note like all of the different things that are happening, whether within Bitcoin or outside of Bitcoin. Right now, obviously, I talk a lot about ICP on the channel. ICP is building that chain key integration type system, so you can actually interact directly on Bitcoin through ICP. The TAP protocol is one that has actually done that, leveraging ICP. They actually have bridged stable coins over to Bitcoin, which is pretty cool. They're starting to kind of get a lot more of those complex smart contract capabilities interacting using Bitcoin, because it's not necessarily built on Bitcoin per se, but it interacts directly through Bitcoin, which is of course what we're wanting to see and things like that. So now moving on, we have some other ones too. I mean, XRP has briefly mentioned the possibility of trying to integrate their chain with Bitcoin. HBAR has kind of tried to do that again through their integration or their partnership with ICP. Also, HBAR is looking to leverage Ethereum as well through that partnership. And then also we do have Cardano. Cardano has made some fairly committed, or at least seemingly committed, moves towards trying to unlock the liquidity of Bitcoin through a kind of more capable infrastructure, right? Cardano is clearly a more capable infrastructure from Bitcoin, and so that's something that they're definitely working toward. I'm interested to see how they go about this. ICP currently obviously has a really robust and well-developed ecosystem to integrate directly within Bitcoin, so I think that is a possibility. The other possibilities is that maybe they just try and build it out themselves and do that. I'm not exactly sure why they would do that when there's kind of already a product existing on the market. But hard to say for sure. All we do know is that Charles Hoskinson has been pretty vocal and pretty committed to the fact that he wants to try and unlock the liquidity of Bitcoin through Cardano. So What exactly like that type of form takes, we don't know for sure, but I'm pretty interested to kind of see how all of that unfolds. I think what we're seeing and kind of what we can kind of gather from the liquidity or the TVL on chain for Bitcoin is that people are kind of looking for something to do with their Bitcoin other than just hold it. Obviously, there are going to be the Bitcoin maxis who are not going to do that, and they just want to hold their Bitcoin and stack their Bitcoin, all that type of stuff, which is totally fine. But I think there are going to be a lot of other people, I would say particularly probably institutional investors, that are going to want to be trying to figure out some ways where they can get some yield on their Bitcoin in addition to actually just holding it and having it be a store of value, all of that type of good stuff. And so I think that's kind of the thought here, right? Of like, if we can squeeze more value out of our Bitcoin, why would we not, right? And I also think that is kind of part of the argument for the Bitcoin ecosystem as well, is Bitcoin is the mother chain. It's by far the largest ecosystem in crypto. If we can use other technologies to kind of build on top of or build off of the base, which is Bitcoin, why would we not do that instead of having a chain for this and a chain for that and a chain for whatever else? And maybe there is a world in which, multiple chains are still needed and just the most valuable things are stored on the Bitcoin blockchain. Hard to say. I mean, who knows what the future holds, and there's so many different things that could happen. But those are some of the things that I've kind of been thinking about of what building on Bitcoin could potentially look like. And then when I saw it kind of happen across this fact on DeFi Llama the other day that Bitcoin is the third largest ecosystem on chain, I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy for a chain that doesn't really do a whole lot, at least right now. As many of you know, I have been kind of playing around on the Bitcoin ecosystem for a decent bit of time now, and so I'm intimately aware of the limitations of Bitcoin at this point in time. And so the fact that it's the third largest ecosystem in crypto is pretty impressive, and so that's something that we're definitely going to be keeping a very close eye on. I'm very interested to kind of see how this materializes. We're seeing a ton of building going on Bitcoin right now. I feel like we're kind of 5 years back of kind of where everything else was, probably actually maybe even more like 6 or 7 years, because there's so many infrastructure plays going on, because people need to know, how can you build on Bitcoin? What can you do? How do you interact with it? All that type of stuff. None of that's really been figured out yet, where with kind of the EVM type situations, it's very clear, right? I mean, you've got your market makers, you've got your liquidity pools, you know how to set up the smart contracts, you know how to set up projects. There's a general overall kind of blueprint for how things work and why they work and what's the kind of the recipe for success. None of that exists at all on Bitcoin yet. And so I think that's kind of mainly where a lot of the focus is going, is just towards the infrastructure type plays. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and a subscribe, because it really, really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments on this, I'd really love to hear you guys' feedback. The whole building on Bitcoin thing is something that I don't necessarily hear too much or too frequently, I guess I should say. And so I'd love to hear you guys' take on this. Like, do you think this is a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Do you not care? Do you care a whole lot? Does it matter to you what chain you interact on at all? Like, what do you make of this? I'd love to hear. So, drop those in the comment section below, because I really do like hearing from you guys. Also, I do try to read and respond to all of my comments. So if you have anything that you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do so. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.